Hello again and welcome to the video. Today we've got another Hornby model to have a look at. Quite obviously you can see that this is a diesel locomotive. It's number 47170 and this model is number 307 in the Hornby catalogue. So this is a bit of an older model now, and I did get this model second-hand. So we're going to have a look and see what we've got here. So you can see that the box has had a few bashes in its time, scuff up here, but the plastic film of the window is still intact, which is good, and overall this box is looking pretty good for its age. But let's go ahead and see what we've got inside this box. So inside the box I noticed that it comes with this cardboard sleeve which says authentic O scale model of the class 47, and it also came with these instructions and operating manual. So this sheet talks about the 01 system that Hornby produced way back before DCC. The other instructions, which are starting to get a bit yellow now, you can see with the age, they're talking about maintenance of the locomotive. But up here there's a little clue about the age of this locomotive, and it has a reference number which includes 1982. So there's quite an extensive set of instructions here showing how to maintain this locomotive and others in the Hornby range. You can see the information here at the top is all about a steam locomotive, and this information down below is a combination of steam and diesel locomotives. So this is a generic instruction sheet. So let's have a look and see what we've got inside this polystyrene tray. You can see that the model is being held quite securely, and straight away one of the things I'm noticing is that this part here has been really badly painted in white. Now I don't know whether that was a previous owner or whether it came out of the factory like that. I would very much doubt it's come out of the factory, because you can see things like these little yellow dots here are very well done, but that is not very well done. And you can also see here some silver paint that's been badly applied to this point here and has come down onto the yellow. So I'm feeling as though the previous owner did try to do some additional extras onto this model and has not done that very well. I'm also seeing that the wheels have been painted white on the edges here, which is a bit of a disappointment as well. I'm not sure that would be accurate. But let's go ahead and get this model out. So one thing I'm noticing straight away about this 47 is it's actually quite light. Modern day locomotives seem to have a lot more going for them, and they've maybe got a few more weights. This one feels very light and almost toy-like. So starting at the front here, I can see that there's been some paint added on here at the hook, which I think again is the previous owner, but there's quite a nice representation of the front of a 47 here. You can see the domino code box here and the lights being picked out with a bit of red paint. There's also these transfers showing warning flashes, and there are a number of moulded on handrails here which have been picked out in silver paint, but have not been picked out very well. So again, I think that's maybe the previous owner. The glazing has some windscreen wipers moulded into it, and it is very clear and well fitted, and that's really quite nice. And you can see inside it has some cab detail there. Looking down the side of the locomotive now, there's a very crisp definition between the yellow and the blue. I think this model was moulded in blue, so the yellow paint would have been added on, as well as the black for the surround here, which has also been applied very well, and the edges are very crisp. There's a large British Railways logo here. There's a bit of blue hazing going on, especially at the top of this ridge here, but you can also see it evident further down. There's glazing on this window here, and you can see through it into the interior of the locomotive, but there's no engine detail to have a look at there. Further down the model, the 47 sides don't have a lot going on, so you don't expect to see a lot here. But at this point there is a hatch and some steps going up to the roof, and these have been picked out in silver, although I think again that's been the previous owner that's done that. Another warning flash has been applied here as a transfer, and here is the name of the locomotive, County of Norfolk, and that's been applied over this ridge line, but it's been done very well. And you can even see some of the details here of the little crest above that. This is actually quite blurry. It's quite a disappointment. It was so crisp on the County of Norfolk sign, but they've managed to get this large white number here a bit blurry. And again, you can see more painting here, badly applied, and also down on the chassis. It's quite a good moulding up here. There's a lot of detail on the roof of a 47, and it's been presented here quite well. The grills and vents have been nicely moulded there, and there's also these cooling vents at the top here. So these have also had some paint applied to it by the previous owner, which has really quite spoiled it because it hasn't been done that well. And you can see that also over here on this other vent, and finally this one at the front as well. So that's really disappointing that that's been added on, because I think it's really spoiled it, especially this one here. I don't know what the hell was going on there. So each of the bogies have a lot of movement, as you can see here, and that's really indicative of a model of this age, but it's also indicative of a rather cheaply made model, I think, and it's really not very realistic at all. The drive is on this bogie here. You can see that the two outer wheels are driven, the inner wheels are not. They just revolve freely, even though there has a gear wheel on this one. It doesn't actually connect with anything. You can see that the outer wheels have traction tyres as well to help this gain some traction as it goes along. The bogie also has an integrated coupling as well, so you can't change this for anything else. It doesn't have NEM pockets or anything like that. The other bogie, you can see some of the electrics inside there. You can see an electrical connector inside there. It's obvious that it picks up from this bogie. Again, it's got the same wheel sets with the gears on it, but all three of these evolve freely. I guess they're just here to pick up power. So let's go ahead and have a look inside this model. So that was quite tricky to get those two parts separated. It just clips onto the chassis at these 3 points down the side. But you can see that the chassis comes through to the body and clips in these holes here and down the side. There's three of them. So they've really sacrificed the ease of getting this model together from the realism of the actual thing. So here you can see the mechanism and what we've got in the chassis. There is a standard Hornby weight, and you can see this cable here running from the front bogie to the back bogie, and so therefore it's picking up power at the front and transferring it back to the motor here. So this bogie just unclips quite easily, and we can see the mechanism here. It's quite a simple mechanism on the back of the motor. So this metal wheel here is from the motor itself, and the plastic wheels are the gearbox held on with this metal spring here, and they drive the outer wheels. So this is likely to be a 3-pole motor, and it's a fairly standard unit that Hornby used on many different locomotives, including this one. It is quite a clever design because it's obviously been made on a budget, and all the parts clip together quite easily and are quite self-contained. So it's quite a neat little thing overall, but it does have some limitations on the quality of this model. So the front pickup bogie is a very simple affair here. It just clips out of the chassis, and it all just clips together with plastic little lugs. It's been cleverly designed, but it is definitely a budget model, this one. So when putting this model back together, I've noticed that this cable here doesn't fit into where it should do. It's very loose. It's been bent a little bit. I don't know whether I did that when I took it apart, but we need to give this a little bit of a squeeze to get it back together. Okay, so that's not helped at all because I've actually managed to break it. So I think this is suffering from age now, and we're going to have to do something dramatic to get this back onto there. So I've taken the parts off the locomotive now, and I've decided just to solder this wire onto the contacts for the time being. If I need to take this locomotive apart again in the future, I can always take this cable off of the motor end. So before I start soldering, usual health and safety warnings about soldering. You need to be very careful. Okay, so the cable is going to go into here. Okay, so I must really get better at soldering at some point, but at least I've got this wire attached now and we can get this locomotive back together. So I've just set up a bit of test track here with some power on it, and I'm going to see if this works. So I'm just going to apply some power now. So that sounds terrible. Not quite sure what's going on. I think we need to have a look at the motor a bit more. Taking the chassis apart again and taking this bogie out with the motor in it. My theory is that there's something probably on the gearbox that's causing this sound to occur, so it could just need a bit of an oil, so I'm going to take it apart and have a look. Okay, so I'm just going to use this tool here to prise off this part here, which is holding the gear wheels on, and it just lifts off just slightly. You don't need to apply much pressure. So we're going to take these gear wheels off of here. So at this point we've got just the motor, so I'm going to apply some power to see whether it's the motor or the gears that are causing the noise. So I've got some power on these cables now, and I'm just going to apply them to the motor. So straight away you can hear that it is the motor that's making the noise. So I think it's something to do with the centre spindle on this motor. So I've got this oil here. I got this from a Tamiya remote control car kit, but I've changed oil a few times. I've used this loads, but I'm going to use this to apply some oil. But I'm also going to use my little screwdriver to add the oil precisely and apply that to the middle of the motor. And around the other end, it could be that this gear wheel here is also having some problems. So I'm going to apply some oil down inside there. Okay, so let's try the power again. So while I've got the gear wheels off of the motor, I'm actually just going to add some oil into the centre spindles of where the gear wheels go. And now we can reassemble the gearbox. Okay, that was a bit fiddly, but we finally managed to get this back together. But you can see there's a lot of oil on these gear wheels, so I'm actually going to give that a bit of a clean now just with a tissue. So we're all back together on the motor bogie. Okay, I've got it back on the test track now, so let's see what happens when we give it some power. So it's certainly a lot quieter than it was before, and it seems to be running quite nicely, but it does stutter a little bit on that transition between one curve and another, and that could just be some dirt on the wheels, or possibly the motor needs a bit more of a clean inside it. But I'm not going to do that today, I'm just going to get this back together. But I think this is good success. It's gone from being a really noisy, temperamental locomotive into something that's running quite well. So we're just going to put the body back onto the chassis. It's important here to make sure that you line up the lugs as well, because these are off centre from the middle, so it only goes on one direction. It should just slide on quite easily and push down until it clips. So we've got this back together now, and I'm confident that this will run okay on the layout now. So let's see how much this weighs. So this locomotive weighs 256 grams. So overall then, this class 47 from Hornby, it's quite an old model now. As we saw in the instructions, it's over 40 years now, but it is a very poor model in my mind. But it was good to see that it's still running, and with a little bit of TLC, we've got it running a lot nicer than it was when it first came out of the packaging. So would I recommend that you buy this model? I actually think probably not. It's really shown its age, and I don't think it was a good model when it first came out either. And there's some real bad limitations on this, like the bogies are so wobbly, and the body isn't really prototypical, with parts of it that are holding the model together that really detract from the overall look of the model. It does have a very bright paint job, and it's very indicative of 47s of that era, and in that respect it's quite attractive. But as a model for your model railway layout or collection, I don't think this is the one for you, so I totally wouldn't recommend it. I hope you liked this video and you found it informative anyway, so I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around. In the meantime though, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to enjoy more videos like this. But that's it for today. See you next time.